Hey there, YouTube. Today, we're going to talk about, I think, a really interesting topic, a long overdue conversation in my view. And let me tell you what I'm talking about. We got a post here from Ben Barry, the Area 6 director. And I saw this on Instagram yesterday. I thought it was very interesting. If you have evidence of IPSC national stages being shot before the match, please send to area6@uspsa.org or ben@barryshooting.com. I've seen some match footage, but if there's more, I would like to take a look. Given the sensitive nature and the possible involvement of other board members, identities will be kept confidential. If there's something to this, the discipline committee will make a recommendation for action to the board. Now, this warmed my heart to see this. It has consistently been an issue. This has been stuff that I've seen in a lot of different places. Like there'll be places where they have major matches where the stages basically don't move for a while. There's some parts, not even in the US, but there's IPSC matches I've seen around the world where you look at the way that it's set up with guys literally practicing on the stages before the match. And for me, I'm just looking at it like, yeah, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go to that. Not into that because you'll see there definitely is some sort of an advantage, but this is something that's gone on for a long time, and it's an interesting topic to talk about. I don't think what's going on in Arizona for IPSC nationals, by the way, I don't think it's like guys practicing on the stages, but it's something that's good to talk about. So let's look at the 30,000 foot view of the match and why I think this is. It's at least good to be sus. So the match director is a guy named Jim Adame. And all I know about this dude, like the only thing I know is that when we had our infamous lunch with the hot dog with Leighton Uthousand, one guy was brought up by Joel, a guy named Brian Popoulos, who had been, as far as we could tell, soft banned from this range, from Rio Salado. What do I mean soft banned? Like he would register for events, including IPSC nationals, by the way, register for that. And then the registration wouldn't go through, his money'd be refunded, and then no email response from anybody. At least that's his story. Well, when we brought this up to Leighton, he lied, I would say. I didn't really believe him when he was saying like, oh no, Brian knows why he's banned from Rio. He knows that. He knows why. Kind of looking at him like, it doesn't sound very credible. Well, a few days later, after that lunch, Brian Popoulos got an email from Jim Adame, which I did see and I did post. And it was informing him like, hey, you made these comments at the registration line February. It was like 10 months prior. Like he'd made some snarky comment about the match t-shirt. And as a result of that, he'd been banned from the range. And it was a retroactive banning. So when I see that name and say, okay, well, that's where I know that guy from. He's the guy that Leighton can make a call and then he'll send out a letter to make the banning official to make sure that it complies with all the USPSA's rules. Well, that's interesting. Assistant match director, Leighton Uthousand, the hot dog himself. Range master, Troy McManus. Assistant range master, Russell Fortney. Pretty interesting to see all those names on the staff for IPSC nationals. And then in conjunction with this post from Ben Barry, it's like, well, this is very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Now, we got a few different responses, a few different things from top level shooters or personalities you might have heard from. Tom Castro put out a video. He was pretty fired up, I think yesterday. Yeah, he was fired up yesterday. He kind of backed off a little today as he learned some more details. And I think he talked to somebody there. But anyway, some things were discussed. Let me read a post from Nils Jonason here. You must be referring to the local IPSC matches our monthly USPSA clubs at Rio Salado have been building. Well, I wish we had the capacity to build and leave major match stages up for a month plus to practice. This is sadly not possible. And I agree that would have been an exceptionally large and unfair advantage for locals. Yeah, I think we all agree on that. These are our best guess recreations of what our local match directors think the stages might look like from the stages that have been posted online. Okay, so what Nils is saying here is like they're doing their best to recreate the stages. Now it's the same range, same props, many crossover type of personalities. I don't know who exactly was there and who wasn't there. Well, I know Leighton attended the match, but I mean, this is them at the range with some overlap in people, with all the props doing their best to recreate the stages. Now, based on some stuff that I saw, not from the match, not so much from the match yesterday, but the one the week prior, I think the Hose Masters Club, is it because they have multiple clubs at the same range? Those appeared to be pretty much bang on in a lot of respects for the stages. Okay, so Nils is letting you know they're doing their best to recreate the stages. So that in and of itself, you just think about that, and that's kind of interesting. Do you want that going on? Now, I wouldn't say that that's necessary. I wouldn't say, oh, that's cheating, or they should. I've seen some guys posting like they should just DQ all these guys from IPSC Nationals. I don't know about all that, but this is an interesting thing to talk about where it's like, do you want the host range for the upcoming IPSC Nationals to do their best to recreate the stages and then have like a practice match? Do you think that's good? Personally, I don't like that. If I was flying in from across the country, that would be annoying me a lot. This kind of stuff did annoy me a lot. Never really liked it. And the thing that's hard for people is like, if you're just shooting for fun and you don't really care, like does not seem like a big deal. If you're shooting for championships and you think that this might give somebody a 1% advantage, well, I can tell you, I won some nationals by less than 1%. 1% could be determinative. So it's like, you don't want there to be any advantage either way, if you catch my drift. Now, Nils' wife, Jessica Jonasson, she took a little different tact with this, her pretty carefully worded. I can tell you with certainty the stages built for the last two local matches at Rio are not IPSC national stages. These matches were not run by the MD for IPSC Nats. They were not built by the team that is building IPSC Nats. They were built on Rio Bays by two different sets of build crews and MDs the day prior to their respective matches and torn down when their match was complete. Some of them was run using IPSC rules to rearm shooters, the equipment rule difference between blah, blah, blah. Okay, there's one prop, a teeter-totter, that's in development for IPSC Nats that has been tested during the last two matches and modified after each to improve safety and repeatability. Yeah, so that's another interesting thing. You have props like that, like a teeter-totter. There was a prop at Joel's range for a long time, which was a shaky bridge. And it was just kind of like, yeah, you just throw that thing into the club matches for a couple months before your big annual match. And the guys at the club, they get to experience that prop, kind of at their leisure. Take some time with it, and then it'll be different during the match. So that's some stuff. Yet that is the sort of stuff that happens where there's always going to be some of it, but where do you want to draw the line? She goes on, Rio hosts at least 5 different USPSA clubs and has over a dozen different match directors that manage those matches. None of the aforementioned match directors will be the MD for IPSC Nationals. Any unusual concerns regarding competitive equity or accusations of cheating are unfounded. Of course, the local shooters will have the advantage of being familiar with the range, staying in their own homes instead of traveling, and knowing how to best manage the weather and range conditions. But those are true for the locals of any host club at any major match. Well, I agree with what she's saying. You can believe whatever you want, but you're going to have a home field advantage when the match is at your home field, just inherently, if it's at the place that you're comfortable with. I wouldn't say that the accusations are unfounded, just based on the footage that I've seen, comparing that to the diagrams. It's like, well, they did a pretty damn good job on those stages. They're very particular types of construction. I mean, I wouldn't call these like necessarily say it's like, oh, they're all cheating, but it's like, I think they're I think they're walking right up to that line. Let me put it that way. So some of the feedback I've heard, the consistent line is, hey, these stages were torn down. Hey, these stages were not the same. I think we've seen, like I said, yesterday the match was more different, but it was very, 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 very similar. Before, some guys I'm talking to say this is like a Rio thing, where the game is you set up almost identical stages by design, and then you tear them down. So it's like the guys get a little bit of practice, but it's sort of skirting right up to what the rules would be. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else interesting Hurry can pull out. No, I don't think so. Well, anyway, this is an interesting thing to talk about. I think Ben Barry is doing the Lord's work, honestly, to just bring this topic up because this kind of thing should be talked about. There should be, let's just say a more defined policy on this. And think about what you would want if you were flying into this match. Like, what would you want to see? Personally, I'd want to see, you guys have diagrams for the stages and you just never build them, don't build anything approaching them before you have your national match, because you want it to be fair and you want it to appear to be fair, and you don't want this kind of thing besmirching the match. I mean, I hope it's a good match, honestly, but when you have stuff like this where there's accusations of shenanigans and it looks like there's some sauce behind that, where it's like, yeah, they're building like kind of proxies for the same type of stuff, and other guys are going to come in here and have 5 minutes to look at this stage, and then they're going to shoot it, and other people have practiced on it. You just don't want that. You don't want that affecting national matches. It's just not a good thing. It's not good for anybody. I'm glad Ben is bringing this up and talking about it. And hopefully the discipline committee has some recommendations. I'm not talking about, DQing everybody, doing crazy shit. I mean, just like actually take a look at the issue and decide, what do you want this thing to look like moving forward? Do you like this kind of thing? I think most people don't like this. They're like, yeah, this doesn't look good. This isn't the right thing. Or for whatever the advantage is or isn't, this is not what we want the national match to be. We want it to be the freshest possible look for everybody at these types of stages. At least that's my opinion. Maybe you have a different one. We'll be watching. We'll see what comes of this.